Micah Margolis, good to have you on this program. I've been trying to think about what to call this because it's not really a podcast. It's not really. I guess it's kind of a YouTube series. We're getting together to talk about stuff. I think you're interesting, and I think what you're up to is very interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about today, or talk a little bit today about AI.
Yeah.
What are you doing with AI? You and I met in this kind of unspoken kind of beta group that I don't even know if I can say out loud, exploring the use of AI. One of my goals, one of my primary goals for 2025 was to learn more about AI and start leveraging a little bit more. I guess let's just get right into it. What excites you about AI, and what attracted you to this little still clandestine kind of group that we've become a part of?
Yeah. For me, the I'll answer those in reverse order. The group that we're a part of is a testament to um, my belief that all of our successes, all of our failures, they're all built on relationships. And I'm a very relationships-based person. My mentor of a very long time, a woman named Dr. Lisa Palmer, who's a dear friend of mine, is the one that brought me into the group, and it really became a platform. I thought at first it would be sort of this thought leadership, exchange of great, and don't get me wrong, I'm doing a lot of that,
Mhm.
um, but a lot of what I've gotten from it has been perspective shift, thinking about the role of AI differently. Prior to that, I had obviously, AI is an expertise of mine. It's something I love, but I had the focus on optimization and new revenue streams, right? The business side of
Yeah.
AI. But I think in particular, as you and I have interacted about things, I've started to really look at how what role AI has in making me a better person. What's the human side of AI, and really kind of shifting a lot of the mental focus from the old conversation of the work-life balance. Is AI going to take my job? And my focus kind of shifted to, what, it's not profession based. This whole AI revolution, a big portion of it, people are asking the wrong question. It's not, is AI going to take my job? It's not AI versus human. It's AI plus human. Actually, let me make human primary. Human plus AI versus everybody else.
Mhm.
And that's going to apply to the ways that you can level yourself up in a personal environment too. Um, I found, as as I was living the corporate life some number of years ago, I found, I wouldn't say I burned out. I'd say I slow roasted. It was kind of this long decline till I started to literally talk to AI and just kind of download my thoughts and use it as a sounding board, not just for strategy in a business world, but the strategy in my personal life. So, for example, and my AI, maybe I'm a little too sarcastic because the profiles that they've created for me and the banter back and forth is quite sarcastic. But it'll say things to me like, listen, if God wanted you to answer emails after 6 p.m., he wouldn't have invented do not disturb. And that just makes me think, right? It just it just pokes me, and it says, okay, so um, there's this vehicle that I can use to identify my values more, to understand who I am, to figure out where I can grow. And it's going to be one of my favorite terms. It's going to be candid with compassion, because I didn't teach it to be mean to me, but it's going to nudge me in the right direction. Um, and I found that on a personal level, it's actually having an outsized impact compared to how much AI has changed my life from a business perspective.
I agree with you. I'm nodding as you're saying this because there's so much more to AI than just delegating and deferring toil and process, right? And I think as I investigate it, and I'm still really more curious than even having a plan with it for myself just now. When you look at how people or how most people use it, it's a glorified smart internet search.
Hmm.
For salespeople, especially when I asked AI what its top 10 prompts were, Most of them were, can you write a cold call for me? How do I overcome this objection? Or, I'm sorry, can you write a cold email? Can you write a cold call script for me? Things like that. It's like, man, you're really not leveraging AI. You're just getting better, marginally better, search results. But when I sit
Hmm.
and I talk to mine, and these things are programmed, and whether or not you pay the $20 a month for ChatGPT Plus like I do, and you talk to it, or you just type to it because that's the free version or whatever you're using, it's programmed to prompt you with another question to ask it to do more. And some of that's clever marketing. They want to sink their hooks into you so that you use
Hmm.
this more and more. But those prompts are actually helpful. And what I find is, actually more often than not right now, Micah, and I'm curious if this is your experience too. It'll prompt me with a question and I'll say, "Oh, I'm not I'm not ready to go there right now. I got to put this down." This conversation all of a sudden just got a whole lot deeper than where I expected it to go. And
Hmm.
I'm I have to take a step back. And I'm supposing here, but I'm thinking this is where you're going, what you're mentioning when you're saying that it's having an outsized impact on who you are becoming and your personal growth. Because in my experience, it's prompting me to think about things that I was not planning to think about. And sometimes I'm not prepared to think about, but now I know I should be thinking about it because something, doesn't matter what it is, said, huh, have you thought about this? And it's
Yeah, no,
almost a challenge, you know?
it is, and um, I appreciate that it challenges me on a daily basis, and it does it in a nice way, a funny way sometimes, but it's also very direct. It'll say things like, the people you love shouldn't get what's left of you. Like you've worked enough today, go do some stuff. And it helps me kind of prioritize those things. It'll, it. I think what it's done is it's made me really double down and focus on clarity and purpose. So,
Mm.
I did the hustle thing for a very long time, and I started to learn that success makes you loud, but purpose makes you clear. And clarity is the most important thing, right? Your calling is not always going to feel comfortable. It's not going to feel certain. As a matter of fact, if it does, it's probably not really your calling. But it will always feel honest. It will always feel authentic. And I think I learned by interacting more and more with AI deliberately, right? This isn't something that happened passively. It was a concerted effort on my part, but my purpose is bigger than the job, right? It's how I show up. And if I can find meaning in what I do, then I can bring meaning to my life, and I can rise well in a way that my kids can point at and say, "Hey, Daddy did this, and that made the world a better place." And at the end of the day, I think that it's really shifted my definition of success in that regard, right? It's had me focus on my kids don't care about the boardroom, and that's very grounding, right? I can have all the success anywhere, but what they care about is if I showed up, and if I can demonstrate to them that the most sacred work that I do happens at home, uh, then I think that I I've taught them the values of life that I'm building on for myself, right? You don't figure these things out very quickly. But I know that it's a constant struggle. And when I can quiet my mind, when I can sit and think with things, when my soul is quiet, that's when I lead better, both as a father and as an employer.
So I'm going to prompt you, pun fully intended there, to dig a little bit deeper into the word you just said there, which is meaning. And I want to get into family stuff because our both of our respective families are very important to us. And
Mhm.
I can say in no uncertain terms that my family dynamic has guided my professional journey. Um, and I know you can say the same, but let's talk a little bit about meaning first. You scratched at that, you just touched it and then kind of left it there for me to pick up, and I'm absolutely going to pick it up. Um, let's talk about meaning. How has your experience with AI helped you dig a little bit deeper into it? And maybe if you're willing to share, what have you learned?
Yeah, so we could talk about that for a whole nother hour. But the um, I mean, you get 24 hours. So does everybody else, and how you spend them is who you become. And I've learned that, and there's a lot of elements to this. One, just like if you're talking about cost optimization in the business world, if you're saving money, if you're saving time, unless you earmark it for something deliberate, it's just going to get absorbed and it's not really going to get repurposed into any kind of deliberate growth. And I have found that my productivity through AI in a professional setting went up so much that I had an opportunity to rethink what it means to be the meaning behind uh, my faith, my family, my passions. Because everybody says time is the one currency you can't earn more of. But I'm accustomed to this world where others are looking at their calendars and I'm looking at my watch. Like, let's get this done. Um, and I think what this has helped me do is to put things through a filter of meaning. Because what you look at, and as you do things as simple as, okay, AI, help me prioritize my calendar, what you realize is that your calendar is a reflection of your values, where you're spending your time, and time is a currency, right? And so I've made this sort of shift that uh, faith and meaning went from being a part of my life to being the filter
Mm,
for all of it. So um, I'm proud to say that my biggest decisions are made on my knees with my eyes closed, right? I know that I can't lead well if I don't really, really first stop and listen to God, to others, to myself. Um, and if I do that, I find that uh, the focus, the meaning of my life boils down to things like, and these aren't surprising, right? These are things that just get reinforced as you dig into them, things that you knew in the back of your mind or maybe didn't lend enough weight to, well, at least for me. But the best ROI in my life is the time I spend with my kids. 5 o'clock now is a sacred time. That's when I, in my mind, clock into my most important job.
mm,
Um, and I like to say things like, I've got a whole bunch of isms. We could make a book of Micah's isms, but before I build companies, I build breakfast with my kids, right?
mhm,
The there was a time I mentioned earlier that I really believed that success meant hustle 24/7. And then I became a dad and things got weird. And it wasn't until maybe a year or 2 years ago that I realized that real success is having the freedom to pause, the freedom to be present and to pour into the people and the things that you love the most. And AI was not only the enabler that allowed me to rebalance my priorities and become more efficient in certain areas, so I have more free time with the kids, things like that. Um, but it was also the great challenger, right? As you go through it, you honestly have no idea what wisdom you're going to pull from this thing, and a lot of it's based on what inputs you give it. Uh, but it made me realize very quickly because it'll ask questions like, all right, I'm ideating. I actually have a GPT that I created for startup ideation. Um, and it actually told me what my values were eventually. It said,
mhm.
you don't want to build a business that just makes money. You want to build something that your kids will point at and say that that made the world better. And it's like, well, that's simple but profound, and all of that is true. So I have to really rethink my definition of success and how I'm going to demonstrate that to my kids, to kind of use this as a vehicle for teaching value as well.
So I want to tie a few of those concepts together, and I actually want to set some of them aside because for a few minutes from now, because when you talk about clocking in to the job as dad, as husband, partner, as role model, all the things that go along with that role. Um, I know sometimes it's hard to punch out. Sometimes they don't let you punch out until all hours of the night. So we've both got that in common. But from a client standpoint, a lot of those people who are trying to build something that their kids are going to be proud of one day, they don't know how to
Mm,
punch out of that job at 5 p.m. They don't feel like they can. They feel like my brain said, yeah, okay, that must be nice, Micah. I'm glad you're punching out. You're supposed to be supporting me in this. If I can't count on you, in the evening, then what are we doing? Now, look, you and I both know that there are very few, if any, consulting emergencies, right? That we've earned that right to punch out when we say that we want to, but at the same time, it feels like a myth. It feels like a ghost that people are, supposed to be chasing.
Mm,
All of this sounds great, Micah, but my values of being a family man or woman, being a great partner, being a great parent, being a great child of somebody else, being a great friend, those feel like they're in conflict with this idea that I'm trying to build this business that future generations will be proud of. How do
yeah.
you navigate that conflict? Because it's really easy to say, well, time blocking.
Yeah, no, let me get ahead of the fallacy that came across at some point, which is, um, man, I'm not very good at it. I believe these things, I know these things, and I fight for growth. To me, treading water is the same as drowning. So I'm constantly trying to move forward. Um, and I recognize it's a brick a day, right? I'm building the future. I'm building a better me. But that doesn't mean I'm perfect at it. What I do recognize is that I've finally come to a place where being, once I come to a place, I came to the realization that I want to exist in a space where being a great dad isn't a balance. It's a non-negotiable, right?
Mhm.
My kids don't care what I do. They just care if I show up. So I have a personal rule which didn't exist. I stole this from somebody else, and I'll explain that in a second. But basically, it's if my kids need me, and it's not life or death at work, I'm with them, man. The world can wait. My presence at home cannot. And there have been some sticky situations where I said, "Hey, listen, I need to reschedule this meeting because I'm usually pretty transparent. My kid's having a really rough morning, and he just needs some attention and some love from his dad. So I'm going to prioritize that."
Mhm.
Um, Most people actually really get that. They admire that. They wish that they had found themselves in a place to do that. Very few people push back. Some do. Um, Being candid, it's for me that's like, oh, thanks for letting me know that I shouldn't spend all the effort trying to be your friend because your
Right,
values don't match mine.
right.
We shortcutted this.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not something I'm awesome at. It's something that I have to prioritize. I do time block. I put 5 o'clock is sacred, and on my calendar it is literally blocked. And
Mhm.
and you'll see, um, it, I'm such a calendar based person. Jeff is almost embarrassing, but I literally, because I function so much off of a calendar and I've been trained to do so, I literally, like, Tuesday mornings I have time blocked that says be a good friend. Like, I have to have it on that calendar for me to stop and pause and breathe. And so that's something that I really held myself to in this whole process as well, knowing that cans will get kicked down the road, things will come up. Um, but I learned all this from I was working at a company called Gartner, and one of the senior executives um, uh, told me that he never works past 5. And that did not comport with what I had experienced in the corporate setting, nor with what I grew up. My father was a C-level executive in manufacturing, and um, he had said to me more than once, and this was a point of pride that it was being instilled into every Margolis child, which was, um, I may never be the smartest person in the room, but no one will ever outwork me.
Mm.
And that's something I really hung my hat on for a long time. Like, I will rise because performance will out. I will rise because it's a meritocracy, and I will rise because no one's going to outwork me. But then I realized there's different buckets in life, man. You prioritize those, and um, you can have more time with family, and maybe that means less money. Maybe it doesn't. You can live in the place you want. You can have the job you want, but you can't have it all. So you have to figure out what the tallest pole in the tent needs to be, and how you're going to rebalance your life around that. Um, and what I'm at this point in my journey now where I've figured out that that's that's constant rebalancing. Your life circumstances will impact your priorities in any given moment, and it's not a static game. You are what you need to get really good at is adaptability and flexibility, and then retrospection and figuring out where you could have done things better. Live, learn, do it better. Wash, rinse, repeat. Right. So all that to say, so this guy had said, I never worked past five. And then I tried to push back a little bit. And he said something to the effect of, um, I want to make sure that you understand you can get to the level I'm at and still do that. So let me tell you a story. And he was a guy who came from the sales side of the house, started as entry level sales, worked his way up to running the global services for a 20,000 plus employee company. Um, and as I was talking to him, he said I was in a junior leadership role in the sales world, and I had a very important meeting, which to me felt like life or death. And I'm paraphrasing. Um, but I started to leave to go on this trip to meet the client and close the deal, and I was all in the right place, and my kid just wouldn't stop sobbing. And I'd never seen my kid cry like that. And so I paused and I sat down and I said, do you really feel like you need to have daddy here? Because let me make sure you understand you're the most important thing in my life. Do you need me to show you that today? And the kid said yes. And this guy canceled his flight, explained the situation without manipulation or lying, just said, hey, being a dad's my biggest priority. Um, and the client actually liked that, and it resulted in bringing the deal in. But I think all of that is to say you can prioritize it, and even if it had a negative impact on that particular meeting, I believe in the power of doing the right things, and the results will follow. And sometimes that means swimming upstream.
Well, and you've hinted at this a couple of times, and the way I've always said it is that, most people respect boundaries because they wish they had them of their own. And when you find the people who don't, then yeah, you know who you're dealing with, and there's a certain way to deal with them. Usually it means I don't think we should work together anymore. At least that's been my experience. You never have a better day in sales than when you fire your worst customer. Um, but you're right. I mean, it's trite to say, um, you know, understand your priorities and time block around them, and build meaning in your life. And I like your tent pole analogy. Everybody knows that, but it's tough to do that, right? And that's why, look, time blocking on your calendar works. Of course it
Mm,
does. But most people listening to this don't need to hear that. They already know that, but there's something behind why they're not good at that. That is what is causing them that kind of strife. And I think, what this comes down to, and forgive me if I am incorrectly summarizing this, but we have tools now that we didn't in the past that can
mhm.
help us explore what that meaning really is. Sometimes prompt us to explore that when we're not ready. Sometimes just act as reminders, putting that calendar, me block in your schedule of, hey, be a good friend. It's Tuesday morning. It's time to be a good friend. It's 5 o'clock. It's time to be dad. Those are things that I think we have tools now, and not to unnecessarily bring AI into this. I'm trying to manufacture a bridge to the next topic here, but what we need those reminders.
Yeah, man, and AI
Yeah.
is and uh this is probably something I should have called out more along the way. I get very passionate about family and values in case that didn't come across. But so as an example of how AI has had this direct and discrete impact, let me give you a little homework assignment that I know you've done something similar to this because you and I have talked about the sort of role playing sales call conversations and having AI take on different personas. Um, and I don't know if I talked to you about it, but right after we first spoke about that, I thought to myself, this is a powerful tool for introspection if you're role playing with yourself. So I took it a step further. My one of the things I studied in school was psychology and neuroscience and probably trying to solve the puzzle of my own brain, which I'm still working on.
Mm.
But so I went back to this idea of, and I'm not advocating for anybody to do this if you're not licensed. I'm not licensed. This is just something I did for myself. But I use it as sort of a therapist. The family
Hmm.
systems therapy is a thing where
Yep.
um, I said, okay, make me, and it doesn't have to be that sexy, just make me a picture of me at the age of 80. Make me a picture of me at the age of 5. Now create a structured conversation that I'm going to have with that version of me, asking very difficult questions that force me to think about who I am and what trajectory I'm on. Um, and who I am and how I've changed. Am I the man that I thought I would be? Right. So it doesn't take too much. It can just be a picture that looks like you, and then get some help on what kind of questions to. And it sounds a little crazy, right? I'm going to talk to this fictitious version of me, but man, if I would say there are not many people that can take a deep dive into that without breaking down into tears and learning a lot about themselves. Because if you're really going to confront it, you're going to run into situations like one of the hardest questions was how um, I forget how it was worded, but it was something like um, and and how do you think little Micah felt about that? Um, okay, now I want you to tell little Micah that it's okay and he had permission to feel that way.
Yeah.
And it sounds so simple, but it was the act of doing that healed some wounds in a really uh, incredible way to me. And it's not something, it's not one and done. It takes time, but
Hmm.
those kinds of small things, it's less about the innovation of the tech and it's more about how people choose to use it to level themselves up. And it
Well,
always takes deliberate effort.
it's, one of the things I've been thinking about more recently is, the cost of knowledge is going through the floor. The value of expertise and context is going through the ceiling. And, the tool is that it's just a tool, but how are you leveraging it? And how are
Mm,
you, it's one thing. And internal family systems is something that my wife practices. She's a coach and has training in that. I've worked with therapists before who have helped me with those kinds of prompts and those kinds of conversations. But again, sometimes you need the right tool in order to sit down by yourself and use it. Sometimes it's not the coolest thing that you want to do, or not the most fun thing to do. Sometimes you have to prepare yourself emotionally to get into that space.
yeah.
But again, we have tools, technology, and those things to create the environment for those conversations to happen, whether they're with somebody else or with yourself. And I want to go back to something. I want to bridge to, our kids and the rest of our families. And, is the rest of your family as AI enabled as you are? Because when
Mm,
I go to, some of my hesitation or man, that's kind of scary, not because of the technology, but that's a concept I really don't want to explore right now. I feel a lot of hesitation and reticence particularly among my kids to adopt this stuff. And my kids, maybe more than most, tend to think as existentially, sometimes to their detriment, sometimes to their benefit, but tend to think, oh my gosh, where is this going? This all feels so big. It feels like so much at once. It's scary. How are you encouraging and enabling your family to leverage these? Because at the same time, speaking of the cost of knowledge going to zero, I think higher education is going to change. I think small business ownership is going to go through the roof
mm.
because my 15-year-old has access to resources that you and I certainly didn't at 15, and let alone access to the knowledge, but the enablement, the virtual workforces that can get a lot of these things done. There's so much excitement, but excitement and fear are often
Go
closely
hand in
related.
hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you enabling your family with this?
So, there is a clear bifurcation in my house. I, uh, I mean, look, I'm an AI consultant. I'm an AI strategist. I'm kind of the AI guy. I could talk about AI for hours and hours and hours. But uh, and while my wife, as an example, thinks it's very cool, she possesses more hesitations than I do. And I think part of that's because, look, I've learned the bits and bytes. I know what happens behind the scenes and how this is a mathematical thing that happened. It's not magic, but for her, it feels very magical. It also steals value from the personalization element of the relationship. By that I mean, for example, if I wrote her, my best friend and I got into a conversation about this because, hey, we want to be better at writing love letters on Valentine's Day. So we talked about how we could build, together come up with a way to start it and refine it, and then it would be so much better, and they'd be moved to tears. She hated that idea because for her it was a removal of authenticity. For me, it was no, it didn't write that. It augmented it. It's like if I pulled out a thesaurus, I don't think you'd be mad. Um, and then it gets into these conversations like, okay, but you use this, you just do you ever do you look for presents from me on Amazon? Because Amazon uses AI to help you come up with better ideas. That's the same thing that I'm trying to do. But it taught me how heated, and I'm still trying to navigate the landscape of where this fits into personal interaction instead of just developing yourself as a person. Um, but yeah, my kids are not quite there yet. I have some time to think about it. My twins are 6, my daughter's 3, my youngest is 2. So I have some time to deal with it. But I am cognizant of the fact that it's not going to go away. And it reminds me of a couple things. One, the advent of the internet. Right? You it increased productivity, it changed the world, and the world didn't stop turning because you were uncomfortable with it. You had to adapt, businesses had to adapt, and now it's part of mainstream. Some people, it does good things and it does bad things. Um, I think one of the biggest unanticipated effects of it was uh, before the internet, every village had an idiot, but that was okay because there was
Just one?
this is the village idiot. We recognize the village idiot. But now you stuck them all in a room and gave them megaphones, and so now this village idiot gains a gathering and it causes some problems. That's inserting a slight bit of comedy, but I actually think that's a problem. Um, but uh, the element of this that I think gets overlooked is the fear piece. Uh, and I'm going to put back on a corporate hat because it's for me it's easiest to demonstrate it this way. Not exactly safe for work, but I talk to a lot of clients who uh, essentially the plan is, yeah, we have some people poking around and looking at AI, but we're not going to broadly implement it because there's risk from a data perspective or some such thing. Um, and I'm a pretty straight shooter, and I like to make things clear. So I'll essentially say, well, you just really we're talking about the conversations about sex ed from how many years ago? Like you can teach them to do it safely on your computers, or they're gonna do it anyway, and all your computers are gonna get pregnant. Like
Mhm.
you're gonna have data breaches. The only thing that you can do is proactively teach people what's great about it, what's dangerous about it, how to use it right, and how to use it for good. Um, Apart from that, it would be naive to think that your employees aren't using it. It'd be naive to think that your kids aren't going to encounter
Huh.
it at school.
How many times I've worked with clients where, oh, yeah, well, we're not supposed to use AI, but on my
Mhm.
personal phone, right? Or, because, and here's the thing, and this is the conversation that happened in my house. It was, okay, this is coming.
Mm,
You can stop, we can collectively be deer in headlights and say, oh, I don't know what it could be. It could be massively powerful in a good way. It could be massively powerful in an evil way. Um, I can't decide, so I'm not going to do anything.
yeah.
That was not an option. And that was, I think, the linchpin really for my family and for, particularly my wife and then my daughter who's still kind of wrestling with this for a little bit. My son uses it fairly often, but it's like, do you at least want to have some power? Do you at least want, and you decide to use it for good, right? I mean,
Mm,
and not just try to balance the scales here, but at least know what they're throwing at you. So get involved. And, I've known Lisa, Dr. Lisa Palmer for a couple of years now. And, the one of the things that she said on one of our first meetings was, this is going to change the world akin to electricity. Think about that. There was not electricity, and then there was. And then as soon as that proliferated, it literally changed so many things. That is such an earth-shattering differentiator that it's hard to comprehend. And that underscores the fear part of it. Of course, this is scary, but get on board or be left behind, or even worse, be subjugated to it by people who are leveraging it, right? I mean, you mentioned this, at the beginning. It's humans plus AI, right? You're not, but people, AI is not going to take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI is going to. So at least learn the tool. Choose to use it, choose not to use it. In this case, I don't know how you learn it and then don't see the imminent value of it. The more I use it, the more I see ways to use it. And that's actually part of the scary part for me. It's like, geez, do I really have 3 weeks to lose myself in a rabbit hole, chasing something and opening all these doors, right? I'm trying to be measured with it at the same time, but um, it is imminently powerful and it's not going anywhere. It's here. So get on the bus is what I've kind of approached it, or how I've kind of approached it with my kids, and they're a little bit behind me, but they're getting there.
Yeah, they may be getting there, but like I alluded to earlier, a brick a day, because I think part of it is you need to learn to love the journey, not the destination. I don't know where it's going, but I
Yeah.
know that this is going to be a part of the toolkit moving forward, and I know that I can either as a parent or as an employer try to give you a big old list of rules, or I can give you a short concise list of values. And I'm going to teach you the values because
Hmm.
rules are too easy to break. And if I can help you understand the values behind using something like this effectively, it gives you the compass that you need to grow up right in a world that may not know what direction they're supposed to be moving. And if I can just teach my kids that, and to have faith in sticking by what they believe, but also the humility to constantly question themselves and grow. Um, and to just boil it down to, the greatest of these is love. Your command is to love. If what you're doing with AI is detrimental in some way, shape, or form, you shouldn't be doing it. I try to literally keep it as simple as that with them.
It's a really good, simple rules. Um,
It's kind of like the people ask me about cursing with kids. And my answer isn't no, you're not allowed to curse. My answer is the reason I don't want you to use that word is because you don't know how to use that word to not hurt somebody yet.
mm,
It's the intention behind the word that makes it so sour for me. If you're talking about a donkey and you say at dollar sign,
yeah,
that's one thing. But if you call me a donkey, that's a different thing. It's done with the
right.
intent to harm.
Yeah.
And I think that's the values piece that a lot of people just sort of brush over.
Yeah, when I think about words missing from my current household that were present in the households where I grew up,
That's
because I
promised.
said so, because I said so, doesn't really compute with my kids. Sounds like the
Mm-mm.
same with yours. Micah, I've really enjoyed our time together. Where can
Yeah.
people learn more about what you're doing to help companies find their meaning and establish their value, leveraging the power of AI?
So my personal preference is find me on LinkedIn. I don't know if we can drop a link somewhere, but
Sure.
reach out to me directly if you're interested in looking more at what our company does. It is Kairos Telos Ventures. Um, so we can maybe drop a link there too. But it's for those of you who don't speak Greek, it's kind of about the taking the right action at the perfect moment. So it's when purpose and timing collide, and that's my big thing is purpose driven. So if you're looking for help with being purpose driven and making some deliberate changes, give me a shout.
Awesome. Micah, this was
Jeff, it's
great.
been a lot of fun, dude. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. No, I appreciate everything you shared. And yeah, I think some people are going to take some value out of this. So good
Awesome,
stuff.
man. I appreciate that. You have an awesome day, and thanks for all that you do here and the platform, the way you use it.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Jeff. Bye bye.